Well, it's Friday the 9th of October, and this is episode 2040 of 301 Permanently Moved to Online, a personal podcast 301 seconds in length, written, recorded, and edited by me at the JMO. I was recently reviewing old notebooks and found a page of scrawl I'd forgotten about until now. This episode is a collaboration between the JMO of 2014, a half-remembered conversation with Stephen Fortune, and JMO of 2020. I've been interested in cyberspace since I first encountered the web, but not as a separate reality as we recognised from the discussion of digital dualism back in 2014. Instead, more like how a Python programmer in Biela Coleman's fantastic 2012 book, Coding Freedom, The Ethics and Aesthetics of Hacking, available as a free PDF by the way, talks about code. I'd reached some sort of transcendental state. I felt the pure abstract joy of programming in a powerful way. The ability to conjure these giant structures, manipulate them at will, and have them contained and be contained by one another. In episode 2023, I mentioned my own emotional responses to writing SQL and interacting with databases. The feeling of manipulating multi-dimensional datasets is akin to the period of my life that I spent practicing Pythagorean cult visualization exercises. Manipulating the platonic solids in the mind's eye to mentally spin a dodecahedron is as satisfying as manifesting an SQL return, folding, turning, and transposing multiple dimensions. Chat rooms aren't really rooms in any sense, but I can see why the people that invented them gave them that name. As good a name as any to express and conceptualize their room-like qualities. Do you think of group chats taking place on your phone as being in kinds of rooms? If you've been following along for a while, you know that I've been harping on about semantic software design for some time, making the case that we need new meta-concepts to describe how software makes us feel. I'm not the first to grapple with these ideas. In Reflections on Modern Equipment, way back in 2003, Paul Rabinow suggested a similar approach. He proposed that we need to develop new language and ontologies when we explore both software design and its use, ones that reflect the conceptual ensemble designed to make sense of empirically felt variations in experience. Rabinow concludes saying that anthropologists need to pursue this further. Nearly 20 years on, it feels to me that this is more urgent than ever. Anywho's, Adrian Mackenzie's 2006 book, Cutting Code, Software and Sociality, contains some fantastic work on the topology of software loops. Code is an abstraction that spatio-temporally reorders existing movements. I'll include a table/screenshot I have of all 6 examples in the show notes on my blog, but for now I'll pick 3 and do my best to explain them. Different families of code loops are types of functions that have, up until about 50 years ago, only really understood conceptually by mathematicians. In 2020, we experience them every single day, even if we don't recognize them in our daily lives. Anyone with the experience of card weaving or loom weaving would have some intuitive idea of these concepts, perhaps their own names for them, but it is specialized knowledge, but certainly not as widespread in the population as today. Let's take the loop type named simple and definite. This kind of loop has bounding conditions determined by a finite set of elements. For an example, an algorithm that counts, sorts, or handles inputs or outputs. Another is nested and definite, a loop that has multiple bounding conditions, most easily described as the transformation of grid and table-like structures. Anyone that has proficiency in Excel on their CV will understand this kind of loop. It's pivot tables or paste transpose. Arrays of data that can be transformed in predictable and particular ways by the execution of a function. Types of joins one employs when manipulating SQL is another example. Lastly, there is interactive and indefinite, bounding conditions that can change during the course of the operation. This is a fancy description for any interaction with a software interface. I've spoken about how different mechanics of game UXs make me feel and won't repeat myself, but I recently found in the 1991 essay, The Grotesque Corpus Medium as Meat by Terence Hardpold, writing on the then emerging web, the epistemology of hypertextual navigation lends itself to the methods of depth psychology. Hypertexts are multiform discourses with their surfaces turned inside out, so you can see the irregular rhythms of their innards. As an aside, does anyone know if there are any outlets publishing psychedelic technology criticism in the style of the 1990s now? I'd subscribe. I think exploring how we interact with software thematically is instructive, namely reversing the idea that software obscures agentental transactions. Instead, software in fact renders them very vividly, just in the body, not the brain. Now, I know I've been conflating both coding software and using software, but one is the construction of an abstract transcendental object, the other the experience of interacting with one. Does this sort of somatic software inquiry chime with anyone else out there? Does it even make sense to you? I see so many hints of it at the edges of UX design, software development, and criticism. I can't be the only one. Let me know. reach out in the comments at thejmo.net.